Hi, 7th graders. This is Mrs. Myers with a review of the Unit 3 test that we just had on equations and inequalities. So you should have your paper in front of you from where you completed the test, and you should also have another paper. As you go through this review, I would like you to work the problems out again. And then any of those that you missed, I'm going to give you a paper that has the ones that you missed. I want you to make sure that you put a star next to those numbers and that you correct your mistakes, that you explain what your mistake was. And then we'll be doing retakes next week. So let's start with number 1. With number 1, we have a model. So when we have a model, you're writing an equation from it. The main thing you need to look at, make sure you look at your key. And the key over here shows us that what we have here, these are negatives. And we have 4 of them, so this is negative 4x. On this side, we also have these peach-colored ones, which are also negatives. So whenever we have negatives, when we add negatives, it's the same thing as subtracting positives. So this is going to be minus 3. We have our equal sign, and then on the right, you can see we have these pieces, and they're green, so they're positives. So it's negative 4x minus 3 equals 5. So again, with these, just make sure you're matching the model, you're looking at the key, and you're figuring it out that way. So the correct answer for this one would be B. You got that one right. Okay. All right, let's look at number 2. It's another model, but this time we're going to solve it. So this one we're going to write the model and we're going to find the solution to the equation. So what that means is we're going to look at the key, just like we did last time. And we're not only going to write the equation, but we're going to solve it. So if you notice these light gray ones here, they're positive x's. We have 2 of them, so that's 2x. And we have these unshaded squares. And look carefully, sometimes we assume unshaded is going to be positive and shaded is negative, but if you look at the key here, you can see that those unshaded ones were negative, so that's going to be minus 1. And then the shaded ones, over here, if we look at the key, those are actually positives, so it's going to be 2x minus 1 equals 7. Now notice that there's no answer here. So to get the answer, you're actually going to solve it to get the solution. So I'm going to take my equation, 2x minus 1 equals 7. I'm going to put my line down here. So again, when I'm solving an equation, I'm going to isolate my variable. So the first thing I'm going to do is undo my subtraction by adding 1 to both sides. When I add 1 to the left, it cancels out. And I have 2x remaining equals 7 plus 1 equals 8. Now I have 2 x's. I'm going to divide both sides by 2. 2x divided by 2 cancels out. So x is going to be equal to 4. So the correct answer here, I look at my choices. This is an equation. So the correct answer for number 2 is 4. All right, next we're going to look at number 3. And again, you're doing these problems along with me to make sure you'll be ready for the retake. If you need to pause the video, please do that, but I'm going to keep going. All right, now we have an equation where you have a fractional coefficient. We did a lot of practice with this in class. So we have a fraction in front of the variable. So what this means is we're finding the product, because that's multiplication, of 2/3 and x. And it's equal to is 10. So I'm throwing in some translating there too to kind of help you out. Now in class we learned when we want to get rid of a fraction or make a fraction into 1, you multiply a fraction. You can do it by multiplying a fraction by its reciprocal. And when we multiply by the reciprocal, that's the same thing as dividing, because we're undoing the multiplication by multiplying by the reciprocal. because if I multiply 2/3 times 3/2, I get 6/6, and 6/6 is just 1, okay? So I'm going to show that over here with my problem. So I'm going to multiply both sides of this equation by 3, by 3/2. Okay. So again, this is going to be 6/6, so it's going to cancel out because it's just going to be 1x remaining. And then I'm going to multiply the other side by 3/2. So I'm going to make this 10 wholes, 10/1 times 3/2. So then I multiply across, and 10 times 3 is 30. 1 times 2 is 2. And so x is equal to 30 divided by 2, which is 15. So look at your paper and see. If you made a mistake with this one, what did you do wrong? Maybe you multiplied by 2/3 instead of 3/2. Maybe when you multiplied 10 by 3/2, you didn't get the correct answer. But again, remember for this, reciprocal. Reciprocal. And that's what we use to get to turn a fraction into 1. Okay, the next problem, number 4, moving right along. We have an equation, and this time it wasn't multiple choice. So we're going to just use what we know about equations. We're going to put our line down the center. We're trying to isolate our variable. We're trying to get x by itself. And remember, when we solve an equation, we do the reverse of GEMDAS. GEMDAS being what we use when we evaluate expressions. When we solve equations, we're doing the opposite because we're trying to get back to the beginning. We're trying to figure out the value of x. And so with equations, we're going to undo any addition or subtraction before multiplication and division unless it's being grouped. So as we go through this equation, you can see that we have negative 4x, which is multiplication, and minus 7, which is subtraction. And we undo subtraction by addition. So we're going to get rid of that minus 7 by adding 7 to both sides. Okay, when we add 7 over here, this is going to cancel out. When I add 7 to the right side, I'm going to get 32. But I still have the negative 4x over here because this is a two-step equation. So now I'm going to isolate my variable again. And this time I'm going to undo the multiplication because I have negative 4 times x. So negative 4 times x is multiplication, and I undo multiplication by division. So these go together. Subtraction goes with addition. Division goes with multiplication. One undoes the other. So I'm going to divide both sides by the same number I multiplied by. Dividing both sides by negative 4. Because negative 4, think about it, negative 4 divided by negative 4 is 1. And that's what we want. We want 1x. So this cancels out, and we have x. And then we're going to have 32 divided by negative 4. And 32 divided by negative 4 is negative 8. And you can put that in your Desmos calculator to figure that out. Make sure you're using your calculators. And we can show that. We can pull up our calculator here. So we go into our Desmos calculator. Pretty sure we got it bookmarked. There it is. Can make that a little smaller over here. So like when you get to that point in the problem, where you're trying to determine 32 divided by negative 4, you should do 32. Let me make that bigger again. I made it too small. There we go. 32 divided by negative 4. And you can see the answer is negative 8. All right, let's look at our next problem. Okay, this one, I'm looking for the value of x that makes the equation true. So I'm trying to isolate my variable. I'm going to put my line down the center. And remember, we're undoing. Remember, it's reverse GEM-DOS. So we're undoing, we have a positive 3 that we're trying to get rid of right here. And then we also have 14x. So we're adding 3, but it's a positive 3. That's what's important. If it's a positive 3, you're going to get rid of it by subtracting. If it's a negative 3, you're going to get rid of it by adding, just like when we used our 0 pairs before. So to get rid of that 3, that's addition. To get rid of undo addition, we're going to subtract. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. So this cancels out. I get 14 on the right, and then I still have 14 times x to contend with. So remember, when I have a number next to a variable, that is multiplication. That means I have multiplied a number by 14. So to undo multiplication, we're going to do division, because remember, these two go together and addition and subtraction go together. They're inverse operations. So I'm going to divide both sides by 14. 14 divided by 14 is 1, so it just gives me 1x. And then 14 divided by 14 is 1. Now I also wanted to show you, with a multiple choice question like this, you could try the different choices and put them in using your Desmos calculator. So let's look at that now. So I'm going to pull up my calculator, and I'm going to clear this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the original, the 3 plus 14x. 3 plus 14x. Okay? I'm trying to find what value over here would give me an answer of 17. So if I go to the next line, and I tell Desmos that what if x was equal to 28? X is equal to 28. Do I get 17? No, I get 395. I'm trying to get 17. So that doesn't work. So I'm going to get rid of my 28. So now I'm going to try negative 1. If I put negative 1 in here, negative 1, you get negative 11. I'm trying to get 17. That's not right. Now I'm going to try 0.7. 0.7 gives me 12.8. 12.8 is not 17. So now we got 1 for our answer, so we're going to put in the one that we know is correct, but we're checking it. And look what happens. If I put in 1 for x, which is the answer that we got, I get the 17 that I'm looking for. So think about what you may have done wrong for this problem. And if you got this one wrong, write down on your paper what your mistake was. Okay, let's look at number 6. All right, this is the one that gets a little tricky because now we have a grouping. So let's go ahead and get started with this problem. So I'm just going to rewrite it down here. So it's p minus 16 divided by 4 equals 12. And again, we need to keep in mind our backwards GEM-DOS. So at first you might say, okay, we've got subtraction and we've got division, so we're going to undo subtraction first. But that's not the case, because when we have this bar here, this bar means grouping. So we're not going to undo grouping until the end. Okay? So we're going to wait until the end to undo the grouping. So that means we're going to actually undo the division that we have here first. So we're going to undo division, and remember, we undo division by multiplication. So what we're going to do first here is we're going to undo the division by 4 by multiplying both sides by 4. That's the first step. When I multiply both sides by 4, we get 4 on the top. We're undoing division. 4 divided by 4 cancels out. And then we're left with p minus 16 equals 48. Now the grouping is gone because we took away that division bar when we undid the division by multiplying. And so we're going to undo our subtraction, which is our grouping. We're going to undo that by adding 16 to both sides. And when we add 16, minus 16 plus 16 cancels out, we get p. And then 48 plus 16 is going to give us 64. So this was special. It's kind of a little bit more difficult because of that grouping. So if you forgot and you added 16 first, maybe that was your mistake. If you made a mistake on this one, I want you guys to write on your paper that you'll be turning in for your retake what your mistake was, so you're not sure not to make that same mistake again. All right, number 7. Number 7, another equation. So we have c divided by 5 plus 7 equals 10. Okay. We are going to undo the addition first because there's no grouping. The c is by itself. So I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. I'm going to undo addition. This cancels out. I'm going to bring down c divided by 5 equals 10 minus 7, which is 3. And then this bar here, this means division. Okay, whenever you have that fraction bar, it means division. And I have to undo it to get to the answer. So undo division, we multiply. So you're going to multiply both sides by 5. So this cancels out, and c is equal to 15. And there's our answer. Again, you can use Desmos to check it. So let's try that again. Let's just check our answer. All right, so let's bring the Desmos back up. And then let's look at how we would check it. So I'm going to put c divided by 5. Remember, use the fraction. Just click the fraction bar, and it's c on the top, 5 on the bottom, and then it's plus 7. And it doesn't tell us yet. We're trying to get 10. We want this over here with that triangle, we want it to be a 10. And we're going to put in our answer and see if we got it right. So let's go to the next line. And we're going to tell, okay, Desmos, c, we said it's 15, and we want that number again to be 10. If it's 10, we're right. So I'm going to put in 15, and we got 10. It matches my equation, so that one's correct. Number 8, almost halfway there. Oh, now we're getting into inequalities. What do you notice? Let's talk about what we notice here about this inequality. Okay, I notice that there's a negative 5 next to that y. So there's something that happens when we have a negative coefficient here. So let's think about that. All right, we solve inequalities very similarly as equations. Put my line down there. And I'm going to undo the addition. by subtracting 13. So the first step is to subtract 13 from both sides. And I have negative 5y left. And it's not equal to, it's less than or equal to. And then 35 minus 13 is 22. Okay. Now, again, we're trying to isolate our variable. We're going to undo the multiplication. I undo multiplying by dividing. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 5. That's really important. Think about what happens when you divide by a negative. What happens to our inequality sign? We did this in class. When we divide by a negative, we are going to flip the sign. So we're going to make a little note to ourselves. Flip the sign whenever you divide by a negative. So now the negative 5 divided by negative 5 cancels out. We get y. And then 22 divided by negative 5, you could put into your Desmos, and you can see most of these are the same, but it's going to be negative 4.4. So my answer is y is greater than or equal to negative 4.4. So my answer should be B. So here, maybe you didn't flip the sign. Maybe when you put in your division, you got a positive 4.4. Maybe you divided by positive 5. So nonetheless, figure out where your mistake was. And be sure to write down your mistake on your paper. Explain your mistake. All right, we're over halfway now. Let's go to number 9. What is the solution for the inequality? I'm going to put my line down the middle. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. And so what I have here, on the left it cancels out, but on the right it's negative 23 minus 1. So negative 23 minus 1, if I put that in my Desmos calculator, negative 23 minus 1, it's negative 24. So negative 24 is on this side, and then I bring down my 7.5x. I'm going to undo multiplication by dividing both sides by 7.5. And then 24, I have my calculator up still, 24 divided by 7.5 is 3.2. Negative 24. Negative 24. That's right. I have a negative 24 divided by 7.5 is negative 3.2. I'm just guessing that a lot of you put this as your answer. So when I do this, I get x is less than negative 3.2. So you may be tempted to choose that answer. But let's think about it. Is negative 3.2 less than negative 3.2? It's not. It is less than or equal to, but it's not less. So this would not be the choice. The correct answer here, the only number that's less than negative 3.2 is negative 5. Think about it. Negative 5 is less than negative 3.2. If I put in that negative 5 for x, I can see that it works. Negative 5 is less than negative 3.2. This was the most missed question on the test. Most of you put negative 3.2. And so what that shows me is that you knew how to solve the inequality, which was great, but you picked the answer as if it was an equation and not an inequality. So the thing that you need to remember here is to always pay attention to that inequality sign. So pay attention to the inequality sign. Okay, so this again was pretty tricky, but you've got to think, is negative 3.2 less than negative 3.2? This is not true. That's false. Negative 5, though, is the only number, only choice that's less than negative 3.2. All right, number 10, we're looking for solutions, each value. So there's more than one answer. Remember, with inequalities, they have more than one solution. So I'm just going to take this over here. 3x minus 15 is less than or equal to negative 9. I'm going to add 15 to both sides. This cancels out, right? Because I'm undoing my subtraction. Bring down my 3x less than or equal to negative 9 plus 15. You could put that in your calculator. I think that might be part of our problem. If we put this in, we got to put negative 9 plus 15 just like it is. Negative 9 plus 15, you get 6. Okay. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to write 6. And now I'm going to undo the multiplication by dividing. I'm going to divide both sides by 3. And this cancels out. So x is less than or equal to 2.
Mr. Morneau, I'm going to eat your...
So now I'm looking for all of the answers that are less than or equal to 2. So 2 would be a solution. Because 2 is less than or equal to 2, it's actually equal. So it's a little different than the last problem. And then I'm going to identify all of the other numbers that are less than or equal to 2. 0 is less than or equal to 2. Negative 5 is less than or equal to 2. And those are the only solutions, right? Let's check. 0 is less than or equal to 2. That's true. Negative 5 is less than or equal to 2 because it's negative. But then if we tried 5, let's see if 5 is less than or equal to 2. That's going to be false. And again, each value, be careful. I know some of you just picked the 2, but inequalities have multiple solutions. Next problem, number 11. Now we're looking at the graph of a solution. So I'm going to solve my inequality first. Put my line down. I'm trying to isolate my variable. So I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. So negative 23 minus 1 is negative 24. And you can do that on Desmos if you're not able to do it in your head. Make sure that you check your integers so that you don't end up getting it wrong just because of the computation piece. So we undid the adding 1, and so now we have 8x is greater than negative 24. Are we done? No. We have to undo our multiplication, so we're going to divide both sides by 8, and x is greater than negative 3. So all of these problems, if you look here, have that negative 3. So this sign here, remember, is going to be an open circle. Because it's greater than negative 3, it can't be negative 3. So there's only 2 that have an open circle, and that's A and C. So we can eliminate B. We can eliminate D. So now we have to look at which ones are greater, or where are the numbers getting larger. The arrow needs to be going to the right to show greater than. So the correct answer for this one is going to be A. And if you wanted to check this, you could just put in a number on your number line like 0. 8 times 0, I'm just picking the number from here, plus 1 is greater than negative 23. I could even put this in the Desmos, but it's pretty simple. 0 plus 1 is greater than negative 23. And we know that 1 is greater than negative 23.
Mr. Levy, can you please return Ms. McChain's keys to the front office, please? Mr. Levy, can you please return Ms. McChain's keys? Thank you.
All right, we are doing this after school, so we are hearing some announcements, but let's just carry on. We just have a few more problems left. Okay, next one. Oh, this one has the variable on the right. Okay, I know your teachers tell you different things. Let's just go ahead and solve it the way it is, because we can solve problems with the variable on the right. We just need to make sure we're doing what's on the right and then undoing what's on the right and doing the same thing on the left. So I'll show you what I mean here. So our variable's on the right. So we're going to undo what we have on the right. So we have minus 10. We undo minus 10 by adding 10. Okay. So what I did over here, I'm going to do on the other side, but I'm starting on the right side with the variable to determine what I'm going to do. So this cancels out. I bring down my 5x, or 5 times x. Negative 25 plus 10 is negative 15. And then I'm going to bring down my inequality sign. Now I'm going to undo multiplying by 5. Again, I'm trying to isolate my variable on this side. So I'm going to divide by the same number I multiplied by. Negative 15 divided by 5 is negative 3. So negative 3 is less than x. So we have the variable on the right this time. So when we're thinking about the graph, it might be a little confusing. So we need to think about it both ways. If negative 3 is less than x, if you read it like going this direction, that means x is greater than, see how it's open towards the x? That means x is actually greater than negative 3. It's like if you had just two numbers. Like if you had 5 is less than 7, but you put the 7 on the other side and you switch the numbers. If 5 is less than 7, that means 7 is greater than 5. Same thing when you're dealing with inequalities. If negative 3 is less than x, that means x must be greater than negative 3. So we're going to look at the graph. We're looking for an open circle at negative 3, and we're looking for numbers that are greater. So our correct answer here is going to be D. So where was your mistake? Was it in the open circle or the closed circle? Maybe that was it. Probably not, because I don't see one like that. I'm thinking a lot of you chose B because you're looking at it this way and you're thinking less than. But if negative 3 is less than x, that means x is greater than negative 3. 3 more problems. Number 13, now we're translating. So we're translating, so that means we're putting this equation here into words. So let's go ahead and pull this apart over here. Before I even look at the answers, I'm going to think about 3x. So I know this is multiplication. Okay, and then this, oops, just trying to get a different color. This here is subtraction. So we've got multiplication and subtraction. So let's look at the solutions here. Let's look at these possibilities. The first one, the sum of a number and 3 decreased by 4 is 17. So if you look at sum is addition. Do we have addition? Nope. Decreased by, that's actually subtraction, but we're looking for multiplication and subtraction. So A would not be a correct choice. All right. For B, we have 4 less than the product of 3 and a number is 17. Let's come back to that one. C, 4 minus the product of 3 and a number is 17. So these two are very similar. And then D is 3 more than, so right, that's a plus 3. So that's addition, so D is not going to be an answer either. So let's examine both of these. 4 less than. the product. Product we know is multiplication of 3 and a number is 17. Okay, so we did some of this in class, and I want to show it to you the same way. I think it was helpful. When we have a number that's less than, 4 less than something else, it's not 4 minus, it's actually minus 4. When we have less than, it's minus 4. And it's 4 less than product. Product means to multiply. We're multiplying 3 and a number we don't know, so that's x. And then the easy part is equals, right, is 17. So we're going to put all that together, okay? 4 less than. This is actually going to come after because it's less than the product. Less than the product. And the product is 3 and x. See that? It's 4 less than, so it comes after, and that's equal to 17. So our answer, you can see just from doing that, our answer is going to be B. Now I want to talk about C for a minute. C is 4 minus the product. So this would be 4 minus the product of 3 and a number is 17. So it's going to stay in that order. C is 4 minus 3 n, or x, is equal to 17. And we're looking for 3x minus 4 equals 17. So the correct answer here is B. Just be careful with the less than. And maybe that was your mistake. The less than confused you versus the minus. So study up on that. Okay, now we come to one that's decreased by. Now that's not less than. So this can be confusing, but this is saying 5 is decreased by something. So we have 5 decreased by, and it's twice a number. So twice a number means we're multiplying, right? We're doubling something, or we're finding twice of it. We're multiplying by 2. And that's going to be equal to 15, right? It is 15. So we're going to put all this together. 5 decreased by twice a number multiplying is 15. So the answer for this one is not like the less than, it's decreased by. So this stays in the same order as it's given in the equation, the word form, whereas the one before you had to switch it because it's less than. So like this one here would start with 5 less than, because it comes after the product, and you get the rest. Okay, so that's why it comes after. Last problem. Okay, word problems. John called a plumber to fix the leak in his bathroom. The plumber charged $30 just to come to the house and $25 per hour. The final bill was $105. So the question that we're asking is how many hours the plumber was at his house. So this is the question. With the question, you create the variable. So H is equal to hours. Now we're going to look at the problem and kind of pick it apart. So let's see what's happening. The plumber is charging $30. Is the plumber charging $30 more than once? Nope. He's just charging it one time, so we're going to bring it down. He charges $30, and then he charges $25 an hour. So 25 an hour. So think about that. 1 hour would be 25, 2 hours would be 50, 3 hours would be 75. So what are we doing with the 25 and the hours? We're multiplying. So since we're multiplying, we're going to bring this 25 down. We're not just paying it one time, but we're paying it for every hour, right? That was our variable, for every hour. So it's going to be 25 times H. Now, the total bill, we're going to take the amount here. This was we called it in class a flat fee, how much he charges just one time. This is his hourly charges, or are his hourly charges. So these, we're going to put them together, and then that will give us our total, which it tells us right here. The final bill was for $105, so it's going to be equal to $105. So that is what we're going to bring down. Oops. Well, I didn't mean to bring it all the way down, so I'm just going to write it in there. Equals 105. So our correct answer is going to be this. And that might be a little tricky because it's in a different order, but that's okay. We could have 30 plus 25H, and that's the same thing as 25H plus 30. You could think of the hourly first, and then think of the flat fee. Either way, you're going to get the same answer. Remember, commutative property, the order of terms that you add, it doesn't matter, you'll get the same answer. Okay, that's it for our study guide review. Make sure that you understand everything that we went over, and anything that you don't, ask your teacher. And good luck on your retake.